Next week, the Federal Reserve meets for the first time since January, and they're walking into one of the most uncomfortable situations in recent memory. Here's the setup. The economy just lost 92,000 jobs in February. That's not a slowdown, that's a contraction. Unemployment is climbing. Manufacturing has lost jobs for 13 of the last 14 months. So the job market is screaming cut rates. But at the same time, oil just spiked past $100 a barrel because of the war in Iran. Gas prices jumped from $3 a gallon to $3.58 almost overnight. And the CPI data that dropped today shows inflation is holding steady at 2.4%. But that's before the Iran conflict really hits the numbers. So inflation is saying hold rates. The Fed can't do both, and that's the story nobody's telling you clearly. Let me break it down. Let's start with what makes this particular Fed meeting different from the last one in January. 3 things changed. First, the labor market got meaningfully weaker. In February, employers didn't just slow down hiring, they cut 92,000 jobs. To put that in context, economists were expecting the economy to add about 60,000 jobs. Instead, we went negative. And it wasn't just one bad sector. Construction lost jobs, manufacturing lost jobs. Even healthcare, which has been the strongest sector in the entire economy for years, lost 28,000 jobs in a single month, partly due to a major nurses' strike. Second, the Supreme Court rewrote the tariff playbook. In February, the court struck down Trump's IEEPA tariffs in a 6-3 decision. That wiped out the bulk of the tariff regime from 2025. But Trump immediately pivoted, imposing a new 10% global tariff under a different legal authority, Section 122 of the Trade Act. And he's signaling that could go up to 15%. So the tariff uncertainty isn't gone, it just shape-shifted. Third, and this is the one that changes everything, the war in Iran began in late February. Oil prices surged, energy costs are climbing, and none of that is reflected yet in the inflation data we got today. Here's the word that economists are starting to whisper again: stagflation. Stagflation is when you get the worst of both worlds, a weak economy and rising prices at the same time. It's rare, it's ugly, and it's really hard to fix. Why? Because the Fed's main tool, interest rates, can only fight one problem at a time. If you cut rates to help the job market, you risk making inflation worse. If you hold rates to fight inflation, you let the job market keep deteriorating. And right now, the data is pushing in both directions simultaneously. New York Fed research found that about 90% of tariff costs have been absorbed domestically by American businesses and consumers. That's not the White House's narrative. They've argued exporters pay the cost. The data says otherwise. And those costs are only starting to get passed on to consumers in 2026. Meanwhile, businesses that stockpiled cheap inventory before the tariffs kicked in, those stockpiles are running out. That's why analysts expect price increases to accelerate in the coming months, even without the Iran factor. Add surging oil prices on top of that, and you're looking at an inflation picture that could get meaningfully worse by summer. But here's the part that directly affects your money. Markets are pricing in a 99% chance the Fed holds rates steady next week. So the rate decision itself is basically a non-event. The real story is everything else that happens at this meeting. This is one of the quarterly meetings where the Fed updates its economic projections and releases the dot plot. That's the chart showing where each Fed member expects rates to be in the future. Right now, the median dot shows 1 rate cut for the rest of 2026. If the dot plot shifts to 2 cuts, that's a dovish signal. It would mean the Fed is more worried about the job market than inflation. Stocks would likely rally. Mortgage rates could start easing. If the dot plot shifts to 0 cuts, or worse, hints at a rate hike, that's a hawkish shock. Markets would sell off. And then there's the wild card. This could be one of Jerome Powell's last meetings as Fed chair. His term ends May 15th. Kevin Warsh, who's seen as more hawkish, has been nominated to replace him. So even if Powell strikes a dovish tone, the market knows a leadership change is coming. That creates a weird dynamic where the current Fed and the future Fed might be sending different signals. So what does all of this actually mean if you're not a trader or an economist? If you have a mortgage or you're planning to buy a home, rates have been holding steady in early 2026 at just under 6%. They're not going much lower anytime soon. The Fed isn't cutting, and rising oil prices create upward pressure on longer-term rates. If you're waiting for 4% mortgages to come back, you'll be waiting a long time. If you're invested in the stock market, watch the dot plot, not the rate decision. The number of projected cuts matters more than next week's hold. And pay attention to Powell's language about the Iran conflict. If he flags energy prices as a major concern, the market will take that as a signal that cuts are off the table for even longer. If you're worried about your job, the labor market is soft, but it's not collapsing. Layoffs haven't spiked dramatically. What's happening is more of a hiring freeze than a wave of firings. The sectors getting hit hardest are manufacturing, construction, and government. If you're in tech, healthcare, or financial services, the picture looks different. And if you're feeling the pinch at the grocery store and the gas pump, you're not imagining it. Food costs are up 3.1% year over year. Gas just jumped 20% in a matter of weeks. This is the tariff plus war double hit that economists have been warning about. The Fed is trapped between a weakening job market and rising inflation. They can't say that out loud, but every piece of data this month is pointing in that direction. The question is, what breaks first? The job market or inflation? That's what the next 6 months will decide. What do you think? Is the Fed making the right call by holding rates, or should they be cutting to protect jobs? Drop your take in the comments. If this was useful, hit subscribe. I break down the biggest economic and business stories every week, so you can make smarter decisions with your money and your career. I'll see you next time.